Are you ready? Here we go. This is for score.
Hello, I am Jeff Cooper. I am president of the Gunsite Raven Corporation. I am lifetime chairman of the International Practical Shooting Confederation, and I am the director of the American Pistol Institute. I am pleased to have the opportunity to discuss your new gun with you, because I assume that you have purchased this film in order to learn how to use a weapon which you now own. A handgun is an instrument, and like any instrument, it needs attention and skill in order to make it work. You are no more a marksman because you have bought a pistol than you'd be a musician. A pistol is an equivocal instrument in that it can do great things. It's a very useful device in good hands. In the wrong hands, it is a dangerous nuisance. Pistol skill is nothing very esoteric. I think it takes a good deal less to be a good pistol shot than it does to be, say, a really good typist. On the other hand, you have to know what you're doing. We hope to take this up to show you a few things about what you might do. The fact that you have purchased this pistol means that you have a good and proper reason in your own mind for doing so. The reason may vary from recreation, competitive target shooting, hunting, all sorts of things, including personal self-defense. The pistol is essentially a reactive device, a defensive instrument used for that purpose, and it's a perfectly legitimate purpose in both the eyes of the law and the eyes of your conscience. So we need not apologize for that aspect of the thing. On the other hand, marksmanship is a skill, a manual skill, and it is, to a degree, separate from the purpose to which you put it. If you can hit a hen's egg, you can also hit a paper target, and vice versa. So whichever you wish to do, we will show you how. Obviously, we cannot, in an effort of this type, make you into a good marksman. The determination, the drive, the motivation must come from you. But we can show you some shortcuts. We can show you some techniques and some systems which you can use on your own to develop the necessary skill to put this instrument to use. Now, when you buy a handgun, you assume a serious social responsibility. In the eyes of some people, the very fact that you own a pistol makes you suspect. People who are not aware of the matter seem to think that the weapon has a will of its own and will rise up and attack people by itself. Now, that is such a silly thought that I wouldn't give it credit, except that you do hear people make it. You hear people in rather responsible positions, journalists, legislators, social commentators. You've seen them in the papers. The notion that an instrument has a will for evil is a facet called hoplophobia, the psychopathic terror of weapons. I'm not going to dwell on it here except to say that you need not apologize for your ownership of the firearm you just bought. It has its place, and it will serve you well if you learn how to use it. If you don't learn how to use it, it will be a suspect item, something which won't do you any good and may do you some harm. Therefore, we're going to take this opportunity to show you the principles of marksmanship and the principles of gun handling so that you will be able to handle these matters. Now, gun handling involves both safety, mechanics, and marksmanship. Safety, of course, is extremely important. A carelessly used firearm can injure or even kill the wrong person, and firearms accidents do occur. We insist, though, and we wish to emphasize that firearms accidents only happen with the untrained and the irresponsible. We feel that you are not irresponsible or you would not be viewing this film. And we hope that by the time you have finished it, that you will no longer be completely untrained, although obviously a certain amount of practical work will be necessary before you're ready to go. The matter of safe handling is, of course, continuously important. We will emphasize that in due course. Remember also that unless you can make that pistol do what you purchased it to do on purpose, and that's totally apart from any aspects of accidents, it still is no good to you. It's one thing to have a weapon with which you can't have an accident. It's another to have a weapon with which you wish to touch and hit what you wish to hit at your demand. Two aspects of the same problem. I think before we go any further or take you out to the range and start showing you how to shoot, it would be time for us to cover the subject of firearm safety, which we will do now. Principles of firearm safety are pretty simple, but they are extremely important. If you are aware of these rules and you make them part of your personality, you cannot have an accident of any sort. If you regard them lightly, or forget them, or think them as something that you can observe sometimes and not other times, you are in very great danger of trouble. Let's take them one at a time. The first, all guns are always loaded. Now, if that were truly observed and well understood throughout the world, we would never have that foolish, bleating complaint, "Oh, but I didn't know it was loaded." Any person who makes an issue of whether a gun is loaded or not is betraying his ignorance of the field. You see it all the time. People make remarks in the media and in all sorts of ways about how he entered with a loaded gun. Well, of course it was a loaded gun. Anyone who assumes that a gun is unloaded is playing the fool. Note, is this loaded? Of course it's loaded. I carry it that way because if it were not loaded, it would be useless. Therefore, when I say all guns are always loaded, I mean it. That being the case, we have certain rules of good manners about checking and so on. One corollary of that would be if someone hands you a pistol, or if you pick up a pistol, or if you are, well, any firearm, not just a pistol. If you run across a firearm lying on a table, or in a glove compartment, or on a desk, you assume it's loaded because it should be. And to pick it up and snap it and go bang and blow a hole through the roof, we hope it's only the roof, is to mark you as a fool. Because of course that weapon was loaded. That's what it's supposed to be. All the time. All guns are always loaded. Always. The only one you can assume that is unloaded is one that you have unloaded personally and is still in your hand. I can now drop that hammer in perfect safety because I have not put it down. But once I put it down and pick it up again, I check it again. You keep that in mind for the rest of your life, and you will be well on the way to complete freedom from any sort of firearms accident. The second rule, never let the muzzle cover anything you are not prepared to destroy. When you point a firearm, rifle, pistol, shotgun, at anything, the assumption is that you are quite willing to destroy it. If someone points a firearm at you, you must assume that he is quite willing to destroy you. You are authorized in taking that hard. Chances are, if you're dealing with a novice or an untrained or uneducated person, that he will say, "Oh, it doesn't matter because it's not loaded." See Rule 1. Number 3, keep your finger off the trigger till your sights are on the target. That has a nice little jingle lilt to it. It's easy to remember. It's very important. When you're holding the weapon in your hand and you can't see your target, your finger is straight here. When your sights come onto the target, your finger goes in there, and as soon as your sights are off the target, your finger goes straight again. That one little trick, thoroughly known and observed, would have avoided 6 very nasty accidents which I know of. Be sure of your target. Be sure of your target. Know what it is, and don't let your muzzle cover it unless you are prepared to destroy it. You never shoot at a sound. You never shoot at a silhouette. You never shoot at a rustle. You only shoot at what you can positively identify. Now, if you keep those in mind, you will never have any trouble. As a matter of fact, even if you violate one, you probably won't have any trouble if you observe the other three. It takes a stack-up of error to cause you to have an accident. And if you make those part of your personality and never forget them, you can't have an accident. And that's what we hope this film will help you to avoid, an accident. Keep these things in mind. There's no way that I can overemphasize them. As you see, pistols come in all sorts of shapes and descriptions. First, say that our terminology needs straightening out. There are those who insist that this is a pistol and that is a revolver, and they should not be put in the same category. Historically, that is not correct. Obviously, anyone can call anything whatever he wishes, but the one-hand weapon, so-called, was the original weapon. It was called a pistol. There are several derivations of that word, like pistole, the Italian coin, and so on. But they're all the same. Now, when you get up to the original Colts, which were the original successful revolvers, you find them referred to by Colt himself as revolving pistols. So let's drop the subject and say they're all pistols. They're all handguns. Some are revolvers. Now, a revolver is so called because it has a cylinder which revolves, like that. The type, which is commonly used, such as this one, is called commonly an automatic pistol, but strictly speaking, it is a semi-automatic pistol. If we were to load this and fire it, it would fire once and wouldn't fire again until we released the finger and pressed again. That makes it semi-automatic, strictly speaking. Semi-automatic or self-loading. So the weapon you have purchased is almost certainly going to be one or the other. Either a self-loading pistol, a semi-automatic pistol, or a revolver. Now, both are in common use and both are being manufactured. The revolver is the older type, but it is still very widely used. Revolvers, in turn, break down into types between the single-action revolver, such as this, and the double-action revolvers, such as those. Now, let's start with the single action. The single action is so called because it has only one action. You cock it and fire it. Pressing the trigger when the hammer is forward will do nothing. You have to cock it with your thumb in order to make it ready to work. This is a .44 Magnum by Ruger, and this is a .22, also by Ruger. The single-action pistol has certain definite characteristics which you should know in order to handle it safely. I'm addressing now those of you who have purchased a single action. You notice that with most single actions, the cylinder does not swing out. It stays in there until you remove this pin and take the cylinder out. That means that to load it, you have to go through certain motions involving one chamber at a time. Note that when I swing that out, you can see the chambers as they come into position. Now, to load a weapon of this type, you take one cartridge at a time, place it in its proper cylinder, and then turn and put the next one in, like this, completing that action until the weapon is full. In order to do that, you must place the hammer here on half cock so that the cylinder will roll. That's in the conventional system. There are exceptions. But notice that to unload now, you must turn the muzzle up and press upon the ejector rod and drop that cartridge out. You do that with a live cartridge, such as we just did, and you do it with all the empties after you've fired a complete string. One note of caution. It is customary to examine one of these for loaded or unloaded condition by opening that gate placing the weapon on half cock like that, and then spinning the cylinder in that fashion. So you can see each one of those chambers in turn. Now note that if you put one in, there's only one round in there. Now if I place the weapon like that and spin it, pretty hard to tell whether you saw that or not. If your attention were a little bit distracted, you might not know there was one in there now. So I suggest that when you check a single-action revolver, you turn it slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you're sure. The single-action revolver has another point worth mentioning. When the hammer is all the way forward on the older versions, the firing pin is resting against the primer. So this weapon, this particular weapon, if it were fully loaded now, and if it were tapped, there, it would fire. Likewise, if you dropped it and it fell and landed there, it would fire. So it is customary with all of the original single-action designs always to load the six-shooter with 5 shots. And always make sure that the chamber under the hammer is empty. Then, if the weapon is in that condition and this happens, or that happens, nothing will fire. All the old-timers who used these weapons in the 19th century always loaded them with 5 rounds, except in the middle of a fight, in which case they could be emergency loaded with 6. But loading a single action like this is dangerous if it is of the conventional design. Now, the new Rugers, just to make things complicated, come with a hammer block, which makes it all right to load them with 6. But that's an exception. Now, the double-action revolvers are different and inherently safer than any of the old single actions. Note here. Note the position of that hammer where it is now. Now note where it is when it falls. You see, it's farther in. You couldn't see that pin. Now note what happens when I release the trigger. See that? The hammer moved back. And a positive block of steel also moved up inside the pistol, holding the hammer away from the primer. So that this weapon can be loaded with 6, and you can do that until you break it, and it won't fire. Neither will it fire when you drop it like that. That is true of all well-made double-action revolvers. Now, to load, you simply place your cartridges in these chambers and replace thusly. Here we have the old standby, the Colt 45 automatic. This is a very nice weapon and seems to win all the prizes, so we use more of them than other types. You will notice when we get out to the range and start shooting that we do most of our shooting with these. This is a semi-automatic self-loading pistol, and it operates from a locked breech. In order to make it ready for action, first thing you always do with an automatic pistol is remove the magazine. With the pistol of this type with a magazine release button here, it's dropped out by pressing that. So, no magazine. Now, whenever you wish to check a piece of this sort, it's always a good idea to take the magazine out first. If you are pretty sure of its condition, you can check the condition of that barrel by putting your thumb here and your index finger there and pinching it open. See, I can see no cartridge there, so I am unloaded. Now, if I take the magazine out, thus, the best place for that magazine is under my finger, because then I know it's there. I don't know that it's down someplace or in the mud or in my pocket or it's right there. I can see it. Now, to inspect the inside, place my hand over the top, making sure the safety is off. Obviously, if the safety is on, it won't open. Safety is off. Press the slide to the rear. This is the slide, and this is the frame. And in the meantime, I push up on this latch right here, which is the slide stop. And it locks open like that. Now, when you lock it open like that, it is obviously incapable of firing. It's not in a functioning condition, and what's more, you can look right in there and see if there's a cartridge. If there were a cartridge, it would look like that, and you could see it. Since we've dropped it out, it's not there. Now you have this pistol unloaded completely. If you close the slide like that, replace the magazine, it is now half loaded. In technical parlance, the weapon is not loaded unless there's a cartridge in the chamber. So the piece now is half loaded. You can cause a certain amount of consternation among people who don't know firearms by mentioning that point. Now, I hear people continuously referring to this as a clip. This is not a clip. This is a clip. This is a clip. And this is a clip. Notice the difference? There's no spring in these. In a magazine, there's a spring shoving the cartridge's topside. It makes a difference. It is not a trivial matter because there are such things as clips. And if you want one and say, throw me a clip, you'll get this. And that may not be what you want. So you see, the type of weapon you have purchased will probably fall into one of these categories. And it's up to you to determine from the book of instructions. Remember the rule, when all else fails, read the instructions. It's up to you to determine which type you have and how it works. Remember, these things must be understood or you can't make the piece do what you wish it to do. If someone hands you a weapon you don't understand, don't take it unless you either know how to operate it or have some way of having someone show you how to operate it, such as the man that just gave you the weapon. If he hands you something and you don't know how it functions, you say, please show me. Don't touch it. It's a good idea not to get involved in things like that. The safe handling of these weapons is obviously pretty important, and we hope that you will be careful in the handling of the item that you have just purchased. Before we start talking about technique, I'd like to make the point that the recoil of pistols, the kick, is much exaggerated. 22s, of course, don't do anything. But even powerful weapons are negligible when it comes to this, provided you know what you're doing. Now, I am wearing a .45 automatic, which some people think kicks pretty hard. Actually, it doesn't. The kick of a .45 was an illusion brought back from World War I by young soldiers who want to impress their girlfriends. Actually, I'll show you now that the .45 automatic with full charges can be fired easily with just the thumb and forefinger. Note. So, just no fingers at all, and yet you can place it right there and take a rock off the wall. If you hold the pistol properly, it moves almost not at all. Watch. Okay. The recoil doesn't move. So, there's no need to worry about that. We can simply say that if you know what to do with the weapon, that you have no problems at all with recoil. The fundamentals of pistol marksmanship are grip, stance, sight picture, and trigger control. Let's start with the grip. The term we use for grip is what you do with your hand. That is a stock. This is a grip. Now, that when you place your hand on the pistol, it's important that you place it the same way every time. The pistol recoils while the bullet is still in the barrel, which means that any motion that it takes during that period must be the same every time. And you can ensure that by cultivating a very consistent grip with your hand. The point is that you want to damp recoil as much as possible, and you want the recoil thrust to come straight back up the arm. You'll note that I put my hand on the weapon here so that the bones of the wrist are directly behind the barrel, and the forearm is an extension of the barrel itself. That is the thing we try to avoid. That. Notice that if the pistol recoils back this way and the hand is not supporting it, it will tend to move to the side. Well, if it moves the same distance to the side every time, that's not too bad because you'd be consistent at least. But you're never sure of that. So it's much better to place your hand directly behind the weapon. Both the hand, the wrist bones, and the forearm, so that you get one straight extension of the arm. Now, in addition, it's important to get that grip as high as possible. The higher you place your hand behind the tube, the less rotation you're going to have on recoil and the less inconsistency in the placement of the shot. With the auto pistol, the hand looks very much like that, with the thumb pointed straight forward or on the safety, either way. Some people shoot with it down there. I prefer to shoot with my thumb on the safety with this kind of weapon. The finger placed in the center of the trigger, these fingers where they are most comfortable, the heel of the hand supporting the butt in that fashion. Now that is the grip for an automatic pistol, semi-automatic pistol. Here is the way you do it with a revolver. The same principles hold true. The hand should be placed directly behind the tube, and the forearm an extension of the barrel. But note that because of the shape of the butt on a revolver, you cannot shove your hand up all the way. You put the web of your hand, this is the web, approximately there, just below that break, which is called the recoil shoulder. Now, the rest of the hand is much the same. I personally prefer to keep my thumb straight forward like that, but some drop the thumb down to there and get very good results. The fingers in the same place, the heel of the hand in the same place, and the projection of the recoil thrust through the arm the same way. Now, with the revolver, you have two different ways of using the trigger with the double action. This, of course, is the double action stroke, and this, the single action stroke. Obviously, your finger won't be in the same place for both of them, but otherwise, the grip on the two pieces is the same. While a pistol can be fired in all sorts of ways, there are some ways that are better than others. Now, you hear something about hip shooting. You can shoot a pistol from the hip. It goes like that. Now, that's not particularly fast unless you have a holster designed to work that way. But we're not going to concern ourselves with that. You can shoot a pistol from a one-arm lock, which looks like this. Although we don't suggest that that's the best way to do it. You can shoot a pistol one-handed, of course. The weapon was designed originally as a cavalry instrument to be fired one-handed. Right or left hand, either way. So, but if you are going to use the pistol to its best advantage, there is a right way. The way that is used in practically every case now. It's the basis of the modern technique, and it's called the Weaver stance. And it looks like that. Notice it is not just a two-handed grip. I am using two hands, but there are all sorts of ways of using a two-handed grip which are wrong. You can use the old wrist lock, which does almost nothing. You can use what some of the military services call, well, what we call palm support, which is placing the palm of your hand under the weapon. But recall that it's no problem to hold that weapon out there. That's not the issue. The issue is holding it down, not up. So placing the palm of your hand underneath the weapon is doing almost nothing for you at all, unless you happen to be very feeble in your right arm. No, that left hand is used to control, to pull backward. Now, you can do it this way, which is called isosceles, because my shoulders and arms make an isosceles triangle. So, but that is incorrect. The right way involves the power of the left arm being used in retention like that. In a proper stance, that left elbow is always down. It can be very slightly down here, or it can be pronouncedly down there. That's more or less up to the shooter. But I'll show you the picture of the champion of the world, Jimmy von Zorgenfrei. And you can see what he uses. He drops his arm noticeably. The point is that the pistol fires straight up the right arm and is held down with the left elbow. Everyone who shoots well today, in the sense that he wins in major practical competition, shoots from some version of the Weaver stance. To take it, you do this. First, you square into your target fairly well. You do not lead with your left foot or with your right foot. You face your target with your feet approximately level. Many of us like to advance the left foot a little bit, but never more than the toe of the right. Now, the pistol is placed so, straight out the arm. The right arm can be either perfectly straight or slightly flexed. Many people prefer it slightly flexed because there's a little more strength in the arm when you bend it a little bit. So, right from your right shoulder. That's the beginning. Now, your left hand, there. Notice that it comes up in a vertical plane, that way. You do not palm this way. You do not let your fingers splay out in that fashion. You bring it up straight so that the palms of the hands are vertical. If you choose, and some do, you may put your index finger forward of the trigger guard in that fashion. It damps these certain actions in a way, but it doesn't damp rotary action as much as that. In any case, it's optional. Some very fine shots do one way and some another. The important thing is the palm of the hand be vertical and the thumb held high. The point is that this is a fast position when you can take it, and the more you have to reach for it, the more clumsy you will be. Just clapping your hands together is the proper position. Now, the essence of this stance is the advance of the left shoulder. That way. You do not stand with your shoulders square. As your pistol goes onto the target, instead of leaving your left shoulder back here, thrust that left shoulder forward, which tends to drop your left elbow, and keep the left elbow down. Don't let it fly out to the left side. This way. So. Like that. Now note that you have considerable swing here. And that is the essence of the position, because while you can do excellent shooting with one hand, slow fire, you cannot do it quickly. For example, if I were to fire there and there quickly, I can do it much more strongly that way than I can that way, because I can't stop my hand as well. That is the essence of the position. To hold your arms in a solid triangle so you form a rigid unit from the waist up without any flexion. Up to now, we have been talking mainly about the Weaver stance, which is the most useful firing position with a pistol. But there are others. There must be dozens of firing positions which one can play with. There are circumstances where you might want to lower your sight line. There are others where you might wish to become more stable. And certainly elbow support may provide that under certain circumstances. A position we recommend is the kneeling position, which Clint will demonstrate now. And this is the proper way to shoot if you wish to lower your sight line and achieve a little bit of additional support. It also sorts things out. Notice that when we start here, the left foot moves straight toward the target as the pistol comes out. We'll show you. This will be dry. On the target, the kneeling position, go. Another firing position which has much utility is prone. It lowers the line, it enables you to take advantage of the ground, and it also is extremely precise. We have reason to believe that one can fire a revolver or an automatic pistol more accurately from the prone position than in some cases it can be fired from a machine rest. It is also quite quick, and this is the proper way to do it. Watch. Ready? Go! Note that in the prone position, the pistol does not touch the ground. The underside of the hand touches the ground. Remember that the pressure between the hands must be the same as in the Weaver, or the pistol will recoil too much and shoot high. Note that the forearms both are on the ground, resting solid. Do not raise this hand off the deck. Note that the right cheek is resting upon the right biceps, so that there's no tension in the head or neck. Note that the entire body is rolled to the right, so that the body is not resting upon the diaphragm and causing interference with breathing, but resting more on the right side. We attain that more usefully by turning this toe under, back this way, which encourages the spine to roll to the right. And when we kick this foot over there, it rolls the whole structure over on the right arm and right side, which is what we want. It is impossible for your eye to focus on the target and the sights at the same time. Therefore, when your pistol is presented and pointed at the target, it is essential that you bring your focus consciously in from the target to the front sight. If you can read the lettering on the target, your focus is not correct. A proper sight picture involves placing the front post exactly in the center of the rear notch with the tops of both sights level. Once you have mastered the coordination of eye and finger and know how to place your shots carefully on the target, you should learn to present your whole body to the target. This is called the presentation. And it is an automatic response which can be programmed into your reflexes so that, in effect, you are not aligning your pistol with the sights. You are using your eye to verify an alignment already obtained. For example, if I'm holding the pistol here properly, safety on, thumb on the safety, index finger straight, and I wish to come onto that target out there, everything in here becomes automatic. And now, if I look at my sights, I'll see that they're pointed exactly where I wanted them to be, and everything happens automatically. The stroke starts at the feet, comes up through the body, into the shoulders, down the arms, and on target, like that. And you do use the sights, of course. You use them whenever you can, but you do not use them to align the weapon. You use them to say, is it right? Yes, it's right. Go. And that happens in a split second, if you wish. If you want to take your time, that's fine. But if you're in a hurry, your program starts from the feet and comes on target like that. And your shots will go in as quickly as you wish. Rapid-fire shooting is not only useful, but fun. The pistol, of course, as we explained, is a reactive instrument, and in many cases you will want to make it useful as quickly as you can. It has been said that there's nothing to marksmanship except just pointing it and pulling the trigger. Well, that's like saying that there's nothing to playing the piano except to hit the right keys at the right time. That's really all you have to do is just be sure that when your sights are properly aligned, that your trigger is properly controlled. That's easy to say. In actuality, it takes a little practice. Now, you have seen how it is necessary to focus on your front sight, and that is obviously very important. But unless you can cause your pistol to fire when your sights are properly aligned, it doesn't matter whether you can see your sights or not. Now, in order to manage the weapon, you have to control that trigger. And trigger control is the key of the whole thing. A good shot is a man who can control his trigger, and a bad shot is a man who can't. Excuse me, ladies, that goes for women too. In any case, trigger control is what we're going to talk about now. Now, remember, all guns are always loaded, including that one. So, I will unload it and proceed with this exercise. It's just as well to make sure that you have the proper weight. The pressure of the trigger is between thumb and forefinger, straight back. So, if you press your trigger sideways, that way or that way, when the hammer falls, the muzzle will flip to the side. So it's important to develop the ability to press your trigger finger straight back against your thumb. The pressure is there. It is not here, nor is it here. It is there. Now, that's a very gentle pressure, and good marksmen control it so that the fall of the hammer happens exactly when they want it to. Now, in order to do that, it's necessary to surprise yourself. If you just press your trigger finger gently against your thumb like that, it'll go off sooner or later. Now, I didn't know when that was going to happen. I was just talking and gently applying pressure as I'm doing it now, and there, it fell. That is called a surprise break. Now, if it is done without any time pressure over a long period, that is called an open-end surprise break. Like now, I will just start squeezing, and sooner or later, it went. Now, that is what we use for slow fire, for very deliberate shooting, for target shooting a lot. But if we start shooting quickly, and of course one of the advantages of the handgun is it can be shot quickly, we must learn how to compress the time interval into a space that we choose. For example, before, when I pressed that trigger, I didn't care when it was going to fall. Now I will do this. I'll have a 5 count, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And sometime between 1 and 5, it's going to go. So, see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I didn't know that. All I knew was that sometime between 1 and 5, it was going to go. Between 1 and 5. It always surprised me. I never knew when it was going to fall. Now, you understand that if I get on the target and look at my sights and do that, I won't hit anything. That is the mark of a duffer. That's the guy who can't hit the backstop, who just puts a shot into the ground. But if I squeeze carefully until at some point like that, it goes off, I can compress that time so it can go much quicker. Now, 1, 2, eh?
1, 2, or 1, 2. Every one of those was a surprise break, but compressed into a short space of time. Now, you cannot obviously hold your pistol sights on target forever. You'll vibrate, you'll wobble, you'll come back and go. So you must be able to compress the thumb against the forefinger so that at the time you choose, the hammer falls. And that's the essence of trigger control. It's not hard to talk about. It's a little harder to do in practice. Now, on the range, when we align our sights, we start the trigger pressure as long as our sight picture is perfect, and then when the hammer falls, we get a surprise. And the results are gratifying. To get a close picture of that pressure, notice now, pressure there and there with my hand open. And now with my hand closed. But notice I don't move these fingers. If I squeeze with these fingers, I go under. If we manage the trigger properly, we get good results, providing that our sight picture is right. Note, if I draw my pistol, get on target in that fashion, look carefully at my front sight, and gently press thumb against forefinger, I get on. Now, if I do it carefully every time, it's right where it should be. If I do it wrong, this is what happens. This time, instead of pressing thumb against forefinger, I'm going to squeeze my whole hand, like squeezing a lemon. Look what happens. Again. And down. Now again. At the bottom edge. Now, if this time I crank my whole wrist, we'll get what we call a lifeliner, which is when you shoot in sheer despair and grab with your whole hand from the elbow forward, and you do that, or that. You will not get on that way. Up to now, we have been talking about shooting from eye level, using the sights, at least to verify an alignment already achieved by the hands. The question often comes up, should you always use the sights? Should you practice, shall we say, hip shooting, or unsighted shooting, or what is sometimes incorrectly called instinctive shooting? Clearly, there's no such thing as instinctive shooting, because an instinct is what we are born with, such as the tendency to get in and out of the hot sun. There's no way to learn to shoot instinctively, but you can learn to shoot reflexively without using the sights if you wish. It's fun, it's a good recreation, and I enjoy it. I don't think it's terribly practical, but let's see how it works. I will try a few shots out here without using the sights from what might be called a locked-on position. All right? The trouble with that is that it's not as fast as it looks, because I can do the job better using the system we've already taught. And there's no edge to be gained by holding the pistol down at the waist if you can get it at the eye level, and there's no difference in speed between that and that. The time is the same. Up to now, I have been demonstrating with the semi-automatic pistol in the single action mode. Note, in order to make the hammer work, we have to cock it or work the slide, which operates it anyway. When it is open like that, all I do is press the trigger and the hammer falls. Now, with a revolver of this type, this is a so-called double-action revolver. It means it can be fired in two different ways. The first way is as I just did. It can be cocked, and with a light pressure, just like that. Now, in addition, the double-action revolver, its other action is trigger cocking, and it can be fired by simply pressing the trigger straight through. Now, that takes more pressure. It's harder to do, it's harder to learn, it's a more difficult technique, but it's not impossible, and a good man can master it. We'll show you how it works. Make ready. And come to rest. Okay. This is the double action technique using the trigger cocking method. Let's have 3 on the plate. Go. Yeah, double. After a certain proficiency has been obtained in shooting, it's important to remember that there are other things to marksmanship besides just hitting a target. Gun handling is one, and one of the attributes of a good gun handler is the ability to keep the weapon loaded at all times. Obviously, it's a little bit easier with the auto than it is with the revolver, but it works pretty well for both. With the auto, for example, a reload looks something like this. You can keep the weapon going almost without thought. The revolver is a little bit harder to use, but still, with skill, speed will come. Try it there. There's no reason why women and girls can't have as much pleasure out of pistol shooting as men. This is a .44 Magnum. It's widely considered to be the most powerful handgun in the world. And these are full loads, not reduced. The recoil of the .44 is noticeable, and you'll see how much more it moves, but it is not anything to be afraid of. Are you set? All right, go. There's one. There's 2. Very nice. Of the many things you can do with a handgun, recreation is certainly important. Various sorts of games can be played. Various sorts of little contests and drills can be worked out which teach you smoothness, accuracy, precision, and careful movement. For example, right here on the range we see a spread of targets which can be taken in various ways. The drill this time will be 2 shots on the large blue plate to the left, then 1 shot each on the blue and red plates in the middle, then a reload, and 1 shot at the small orange plate on the far backstop. We will do this against time to see how smoothly it can be handled without making any mistakes. Are you ready? Stand by. Fire! There you go. Now that you have purchased your firearm and you're going to use it, you should have an idea of what it will take to maintain it. A badly maintained weapon may give you a bad start. If you don't take care of it, the same as if you don't take care of your car or your typewriter or whatever, it may refuse to serve you well, and that would be unfortunate. The care and cleaning of handguns is no big thing. It's easy enough to do. First, of course, you must know what the procedure is. Now, with modern ammunition, when a weapon of this type is fired, very little is done to it. In the old days of black powder, there used to be a residue left inside the bore, which was salty, and it would gather moisture. And if you left a weapon uncleaned, even 24 hours, you might have the barrel ruined beyond repair. That's no longer true. Modern smokeless powders are non-corrosive, and they do not pick up moisture. They do, on the other hand, leave a perfectly dry bore, which means that if that barrel is going to be subjected to salt spray or something like that, you have to look out for it. In effect, with the black powder gun of the old school, you had to clean it the same day. There was an old frontier expression, the sun must not set on a dirty gun, no matter what. Well, you don't have to do that with modern weapons, but you do have to give them some care. You have about 4 things to concern yourself with. The first is the cleanliness of the mechanism. Now, with the auto pistol, you should learn how it comes apart. Because it's better to clean a weapon from the breech if you have the choice. That is, to clean it from the rear end. If you clean the barrel from the front end, well, no great harm is done. A lot of people have to do it. But it's not the best way. In any case, we now have the barrel out, and we are in a position to take care of it.
What you do with the barrel when you've been firing for any length of time is to wipe it out with a patch. And notice there's very little residue there. It's now clean. I can see it looks pretty. But to make sure it's pretty, let's go a little farther. This is not oil. This is not a lubricant. This is a solution which is designed to clean the insides of barrels. Now, you can moisten a brush. It doesn't need to be bristle like this. It can be just ordinary soft. And you wipe out the barrel with the solvent. Now that should remove most of the ash which is left inside. If you fire it a lot, it'll take more cleaning. But this looks pretty clean right now. It looks very bright and shiny. The cleaner your barrel is to begin with, the smoother and more highly finished, and the cleaner your ammunition, the less of this you'll have to do. If you fire lead bullets without jackets, you may find that you're leaving lead inside, scraped off by the rifling. In that case, a brass brush like this may be necessary to get the lead out, as they say. Now, you notice I'm using two rags here, rather a dirty one, which is just to pick up mud, and a clean one for later. Note that here we have quite a little bit of ash. That is a combination of powder residue, burned oil, and maybe dust and foreign matter. It comes right off. Note. And what you do when the pistol is down is to go over the articulating surfaces, the surfaces that work together, and get that clean. I have picked up a little bit of lead right there, so I can take that off with a toothbrush. A toothbrush is a most useful gadget. That brass takes, yeah. Toothbrush you should have. An old toothbrush is always very useful because of things like this. You get dust and things in there. An old toothbrush moistened with a little bit of that solid is just great. Much better than any rag I've ever used. It can get into the cracks and clean her up. So what you do is you wipe all these parts off. You get them all nice and clean. And meantime, you have left that barrel in a position to absorb some of that solvent. Remember how clean this patch was? We wiped it through without, then we put some solvent in. We put it through first dry. Then we put some solvent in here. Let's see if anything has happened in the meantime. A lot has, huh? That's the action of the solvent working on foreign matter which has been left inside the barrel. And that's the reason you let the solvent stand in the barrel while you're cleaning the rest of the weapon, so that that solvent has a time to dissolve and work. And that's the proof of the pudding. When you have done this, you can either put the weapon back together immediately, or if you wish to give it a real good cleaning, you can leave it apart and put more solvent in, let it stand overnight. But mostly you will want to get your gun back in action, so you've done a pretty good job. Now, let's see. Now, we're still getting a little, but a lot less than before. So, this weapon is about ready to be put back together. I'll put it aside for the moment, though, while we go on to some other things. With the revolvers, you have a different set of problems. In the first place, this is a .22. And a .22 almost cleans itself. If you use the right kind of .22 ammunition, it has been found by test that leaving the barrel uncleaned is more likely to keep it from rusting than if you clean it. That can be carried too far, I suppose, but remember that if you use the right kind of ammunition with a .22, the barrel is the least of your worries. You have other things to worry about. You have foreign matter. For example, right here, if you get a piece of sand or grit right in there, then this won't close. Revolvers are quite sensitive to things like that. If you get, for instance, any piece of foreign matter down in there, underneath this ejector, you get anything in there and that doesn't shut all the way, and then you push it to, you're liable to lock that thing up, and you'll take a hammer to get it open again. So the important thing with a revolver is to make sure that all of the articulating surfaces are nice and clean, and you use the solvent on the toothbrush to wipe all those parts clean. A little bit of oil is not amiss. You can put just a drop, not too much, there, to make sure that that part is nice and and goozy, as they say. Also in here. Also right back there. That's a pretty good place for a drop, to make sure that your double action is nice and slick. The revolver, of course, has chambers. And if you're going to clean the barrel, you're going to have to clean the chamber. So, in effect, with the revolver, you have 7 points of concern. The barrel and each one of these chambers, and you treat them each one the same way. Now, with revolvers, as you see, there is no convenient way to get at the rear of the barrel. So you can't put your brush through here. That's all right. You can clean this from this end. Weapons which are to be used immediately would go back into your holster, ready to go for the next session. If you're going to store them, you have 2 kinds, live storage and dead storage. Live storage means you want the weapon ready to go at such time as you need it. Weapons in live storage should be placed under lock and key, and preferably in a different place from the ammunition, if you have that choice. A weapon that's not ready, of course, can do you no good. But on the other hand, if you have a ready weapon and several other weapons that are not ready, those that are not ready should be kept in live storage, unless you're going away, unless you're keeping them for future sale, in which case you can put them in dead storage. In live storage, they can go like this, unless the climate is extremely acid or salty, such as in the tropical ocean-going climates. In a place like that, such as the Hawaiian Islands or the Canal Zone or the Philippine Islands, you generally store your ready weapon in a hot locker, where a powerful light bulb keeps the moisture down. In a climate of the arid Southwest, you don't need to do that. In any case, if you're going to store the weapon and not look at it for a long time, a thin coat of rust-preventative rig grease is a good idea. When you do that, remember that all that grease has to be removed before you put the weapon back in action. That's dead storage. I say again that your ready ammunition should be in the weapon if you're going to use it for that purpose. If not, then the ammunition and the weapon should be stored separately under lock and key where no one who is unauthorized can get at them. If you have the luxury of a strong room, that's fine, but not many people have. There are all sorts of steel boxes with locks that can be used in a normal house or apartment, which will keep your weapons safe. You treat them well, and they'll treat you well. Stand by. Fire! The weapon you have will serve you well now. And we hope that you get many hours, days, and years of enjoyable service out of it, for whatever purpose you wish to put it to.